1-month exemption on any autos coming through USMCA. Reciprocal tariffs will still go into effect on April 2nd.
Things are heating up with Trump and Trudeau. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we got Donald Trump calling out Justin Trudeau. He exposes that during the call, he asked him when the next election would be in Canada, and Justin Trudeau did not answer. He could not give him an answer. Now he's coming out and calling out Trudeau for the fact that he does not want to step down. He wants to use this situation to stay in power. Could Justin Trudeau stay in power and not step down? We also got a 30-day reprieve for the auto industry as auto prices are already soaring. We got the idea now of Potash coming into the mix, increasing the price on American food. We also got a story here of a group traveling down to America, pitch their case for Alberta joining America as the 51st state. Let's jump into this. We got a chart here from Table Salt. It says United States of America owes Canadians $378 billion in the form of bonds. Interesting here, 378.8. Japan at the highest here with $1,059 million. I saw this response here. I thought this was interesting, just listing out all the different taxes here in Canada: business tax, income tax, CPP, unemployment, GST, PST, HST, property tax, provincial income tax. We've got these excess tax like alcohol and tobacco, capital gains, land transfer tax, luxury tax, media tax, regulation tax, air travel tax, carbon tax. That's a lot of tax. We got breaking news here. It says Donald Trump says that Justin Trudeau is trying to use this issue of tariffs to stay in power after Trudeau couldn't tell him when the next Canadian election would be on a phone call they held between the two on Wednesday afternoon. I mentioned this as a bit of a joke yesterday. Is Justin Trudeau going to try to stay in power? He's just going to kick Carney to the curb. He probably loves the surging poll numbers and he's getting stars in his eyes, thinking that he can stay in power and just not allow the Liberal leadership race to go forward. What's the possibility of this Trudeau not stepping down? I don't know. I mean, anything's possible with Captain Schmuck. So we got a tweet here from Donald Trump. It says, Justin Trudeau of Canada called me to ask what could be done about tariffs. I told him that many people have perished from the street fentanyl that came through the borders of Canada and Mexico, and nothing has convinced me that it has stopped. He said that it's gotten better, but I said that's not good enough, and the call ended in a somewhat friendly manner. He was unable to tell me when the Canadian election is taking place, which made me curious, like, what's going on here? Then I realized he is using this issue to stay in power. Good luck, Justin. So we got the food professor posting this same tweet. He says here, President Trump clearly understands Canadian politics more than many Canadians. We also have a reply here to the initial tweet here with this one. It says, for anyone who is interested, I also told Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada that he largely caused the problem we have with them because of his weak border policies, which allowed tremendous amounts of street fentanyl and illegal aliens to pour into the United States. These policies are responsible for the perishing of many people. Does Trudeau want to rescind his resignation letter? Maybe. We got this, Jagmeet Singh here, calling for a moment of unity. Singh calls for the House of Commons to be recalled to support tariff support measures. Is Trudeau not going to resign? Singh will support him and keep rolling this into October. Maybe Singh supports him and then this rolls all the way into 2026. Who knows? Anything's on the table at this point. I think what's more likely is Carney takes over, doesn't call an election. Singh supports him all the way until October. So you have to remember there is a by-election coming up in Atlantic Canada, which Trudeau just announced. So I showed this one on the channel a couple of days ago. This is an April 14th, so this would be a great opportunity for Mark Carney to get a seat in Parliament. So jumping over to Polywave here, we've got the Halifax riding here, this bottom one. So right now it's 41% Liberal, 38% NDP. So it's not a sure thing for Mark Carney. But if he did win this, he threw all his eggs at this basket. He would get a seat in Parliament very quickly. This would then give him 6 months to unleash his net zero agenda here in Canada up until October election. But Trudeau staying in power, it's a possibility. I think it's probably a lesser possibility. It's still on the table too, because we can't trust Captain Schmuck or this guy. Another guy that can't be trust is Mark Carney. Check out this ad that Pierre Poilievre put on his X account.
And I would say as well, our economy is stronger than the American economy in the medium term.
I want to be clear about the, quote, strength of our economy. So our economy was weak before we got to the point of these threats.
Every day this guy lies. And this is, you see, February 25th. This is March 4th. These are days apart. Mark Carney just says whatever he wants to say to try to sway people. He is a serial liar. We got Howard Ludnick here, questioned about Justin Trudeau.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today said that Donald Trump is trying to cripple the Canadian economy in order to annex it. What do you say to that?
Justin Trudeau is running the end of his term, and I don't really want to think about the ridiculous things he's said the last couple of days. It's sad. It's time for him to go, and let's move on, have a new government in Canada.
Yeah, let's have a new government in Canada, that's for sure. Next up, we got Trump's press secretary here asked about the automakers, and a deal has been made to have a 30-day delay on auto parts because it is already decimating the auto industry, which I'll show you after this clip.
Can you confirm that the president held talks with the big three automakers today, speaking about potentially delaying tariffs?
I can confirm, and I'm glad that you asked. We spoke with the big three auto dealers. We are going to give a 1-month exemption on any autos coming through USMCA. Reciprocal tariffs will still go into effect on April 2nd, but at the request of the companies associated with USMCA, the president is giving them an exemption for 1 month so they are not at an economic disadvantage. So the three companies that he spoke to are Stellantis, Ford, and General Motors. They requested the call, they made the ask, and the president is happy to do it. It's a 1-month exemption.
With that, we've got this clip here from Table Salt showing that Dodge Ram trucks in America have skyrocketed in price overnight.
Could be ground zero for the impact on the tariffs, Maria. This Dodge Ram truck, $80,000, instantly became $100,000.
That's American too. The reason for that, if parts go back and forth between Canada, America, and in Mexico, there's multiple different plants. For manufacturing these cars, the 25% tariff goes on every single time it goes through the border and back through the border. So these auto manufacturers are now pricing in all those increases and, well, jacking the price up $20,000 US dollars, like almost $30,000 Canadian extra. Remember when cars cost like 20 grand or maybe it was like 40 grand for a truck? Now it's 100,000 US dollars. Thought this one was interesting. We got CBC posting this. It says Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc says Canada won't negotiate a compromise on US tariffs, rejecting a suggestion from a US official to meet in the middle. Now, if we look to this exact same article, they updated it, which you can see here. They renamed this. Trudeau and Trump talk trade and street fennel in first call since tariffs launched. Because this title isn't painting Justin Trudeau in such a good picture. The fact that he doesn't want to negotiate, he doesn't want to remove these tariffs off Canada because it's good for the Liberal Party of Canada. Next up, we got this one from Rachel Parker here. I thought this was interesting. It says that Alberta lawyer Jeffrey Rath says a delegate is planning to travel to DC to pitch President Trump on Alberta statehood.
Statehood? Well, there's a group of Albertans that are working together right now to put together a delegation to go to Washington to talk to the Trump administration about Alberta petitioning for U.S. statehood. It's quite evident that we're being governed by idiots in Ottawa who don't understand that we can't afford a trade war with our largest trading partner. And rather than simply apologizing to President Trump for not meeting our NATO commitments and not adequately securing our border, apparently the Trudeau government has decided to declare a trade war and run up trillions of dollars in costs like they did during COVID on a made-up emergency. So there's a number of us in Alberta that have had enough and want to go speak with the Trump administration about the benefits of Alberta joining the United States.
Wow. I wonder how many of this delegate is. Is it 10 people? Is it 100? Like, what is it? Alberta never had a chance in a country controlled by Quebec. I'd fight to get to the front of the line to vote in favor of dumping Canada. So, I mean, if you talk to Albertans, I was born and raised in Alberta, you're probably going to get a split. I don't know what that split is, but there'll be some people, like these people who want to join America, want to be prosperous, tired of Ottawa, Quebec having so much power and control over everything, and Alberta having to pay for Quebec to just function as a province every year. And then you're going to get probably a much larger percentage of patriotic Canadians who love Canada and don't want to become part of America. Maybe respect the values that are going on down there right now, cleaning up stuff with the Doge and all that, but are patriotic Canadians. So this is definitely not the majority. This is probably like a smaller amount, maybe, I don't know, 10 or 20% at most. We got Danielle Smith coming out today and saying there's no enthusiasm for Alberta statehood.
But this kind of concept of Alberta becoming a 51st or 50th and a half state.
I see no enthusiasm for that notion. What I have seen is the opposite. I have seen so many Canadians and Albertans in particular reaching out and saying we got to put Canada first.
She should do a referendum. Put it to a referendum. Interesting. I mean, we've only had referendums come from Quebec. Next up, we got a guy here on CTV talking about potash. So potash is essential fertilizer to grow everything. This is really the trump card we have because it's going into growing season here. America will be buying a ton of potash. You can only get potash on a commercial scale from two places. It's either in Russia or in Saskatchewan. And to build this guy will explain here, you have to dig really deep into the ground. It's It's a deep mine, and then they create little tunnels underground and they scrape away at the potash and bring it to market. Canada could probably just do nothing else but just double or triple the cost of potash or increase the cost of electricity coming from Ontario, and it would cause so much pain to America that they would have to remove their tariffs.
That's part one. The other thing is our members build potash mines, right? We're the people that do that. It takes a decade to build one of these things, and it costs, what, over $10 billion. Look at BHP right now, building the world's largest, this big potash mine in Saskatchewan. Well, it's over $10 billion, and it's taking a decade to do it. You got to basically build an upside down skyscraper that's a kilometer in. Wow. You got to build two of them and then connect them, because now you're just standing in a tube, and then you got to build underground like a town. Yeah. All that has to go in place. Then you can produce. So this isn't a quick fix, even if they have the deposits.
Yeah, because we've got it and we've got it ready to go.
Yeah.
So then it really puts Saskatchewan in a really key position when we're talking about trade war and negotiations and having some leverage. Yeah. But it also means that you're slapped with 25% tariffs in this industry.
Well, and tariffs aren't good for anybody. I mean, and this one's different. We're not talking about cars, that you could choose to not get a car or not. This is food. This is the production of food production, right? It's one of those things that the price of food goes up, interest rates go up, everything goes bad, and this is different. It's not a luxury item, it's not an optional item. We need to eat, and this one needs to be treated completely differently. You know, people talk about it as a weapon in a trade war. Yeah. Some weapons you don't use.
Really? Why do you say that?
Well,
when it comes down to it, we have to look at how much suffering, how many jobs lost, people going through suffering in our country. And if it warrants it, use it as a weapon. Double the price of potash. Food prices start skyrocketing in America. People start getting outraged. Maybe the tariffs get removed. There are ways to look at these things and use them without, say, cutting off the electricity in the dead of winter, as Doug Ford says he wants to do with a smile on his face. That's barbaric. But we could increase the price of potash going down to America and dramatically increase their food prices. They can still buy food. It's not like we're cutting off access to food. There's a certain point where Canada can't always just be nice and just getting walked over. I mean, we've got Donald Trump lying about the statistics of oil. They're making so much money off of our oil. Gasoline in America is dirt cheap because of our cheap oil that's being sent down there that they make $200 billion a year off of. And thus, because of that cheap oil, their cheap gasoline allows their truckers to move food around America, which dramatically lowers the price of food in America. So essentially, Canada is subsidizing the low prices in America. And we can't always be sitting around twiddling our thumbs saying, well, let's just be nice. Like, it's time to stand up. We should do it in a way that doesn't hurt Canada, pushes back, and get some fair deals going on. And while we're at it, remove all the tariffs off of dairy. Let's open up free trade. Allow American banks into Canada. Allow American telecom companies into Canada. Have free trade agreement going both ways.
This is different. This is food. This is food supplies. This isn't a car.
When President Trump gave his speech last night,
You could argue the same thing, though. A car isn't a necessity in today's life to get around, to have a job. Most places you can't live without a car. So it's not really any different.
He talked directly to American farmers, and he said, look, there's going to be a little bit of what he characterized as discomfort over the next little bit. I imagine part of that is talking about the difficulty or the expense in getting potash to grow their food.
Well, the people that talk about the little more than on the intricacies of that would be the mining companies themselves. They know that stuff. But the simple logic is, if the price of the fertilizer goes up that much,
food prices go up.
Everything goes up, and it's
Exactly, and that's our bargaining chip here. We're not restricting access to food, but their food will go up. Our food is expensive because we subsidize America's cheap lifestyle. Enough is enough. Canada should be prosperous, but we have stupid politicians running our country. If we look down here, we got comments like this. It says we should increase what we charge the U.S. for potash by at least 25%. This is different because it's food. Losing jobs in the automotive sector and not being able to afford food is the same. Exactly. This is a situation where we can't be polite. We can't be weak. If the potash mines were on the other side of the border, they wouldn't even hesitate using it. Exactly. It's super simple for Canada to put a 25% export tax on minerals and energy. Next up, we got this one from a CBC watcher. We got CBC breaking down the effects of the Trump tariffs.
It's Canada's largest export moneymaker, and the push for a new cross-Canada oil pipeline is ramping up. The CBC's Sam Sampson has more on how energy producers are preparing.
Looming U.S. tariffs have some oil rig workers concerned.
The oil sands
are employing less and less people as automation. And so it was already a nervous time. This is just adding to that. So there's definitely some frustration.
U.S. President Donald Trump's proposed tariffs could slap a 10% levy on Canadian energy exports to the U.S. That would hit the largest export moneymaker, crude oil. Most of it comes from Alberta, which brought in more than $113 billion selling oil to the U.S. in 2023. For the first time since 2020, Alberta is posting a deficit, and how deep the hole goes depends on tariffs.
Budget for the worst, hope for the best, and make sure government has the flexibility to respond.
I think everyone is just guessing at this point.
This energy consultant was Alberta's representative to Washington during Trump's first administration. She hopes the past month was full of industry one-on-ones.
Behind the scenes, they can be having conversations with their American buyers, with refiners and others that use the resource to really explain the impacts that the tariffs will have on the United States and how Canada is part of the solution.
One solution gaining momentum, building cross-Canada pipelines so Alberta's oil can get to international waters from Canadian ports, so we could sell to countries other than the U.S. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe said any pipeline is pre-approved in his province. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith wants to get on the same page. East to west pipeline plans have been drawn up and shut down in the past, mostly due to environmental concerns or low provincial and community support. Now, some say climate change regulations would still hinder future plans.
Okay, so for the First Nations, there just needs to be a rule that oil going through their lands, they get some kickback so they actually get money for their communities, make sure they get new stuff, clean drinking water, etc. But we can't have energy projects being shut down and our country getting obliterated because a group of people, it doesn't matter who they are, doesn't want prosperity in our country. The same goes for Quebec. Enough is enough. We need to stop being stupid in this country.
Are we going to be obsessed with emission reductions regardless of how economically punitive they are to the country? Or are we going to accept that in a world that can't bring itself to be materially moving towards net zero, why would Canada give up this value?
Canada's emission reductions plan makes it clear the focus is on addressing climate change while creating a strong economy. Still, these tariffs, no matter how they play out, have sparked even more discussion on how that could work.
Pipelines are now a matter of national security to bring energy independence and export our vital allies overseas to displace dictator oil and gas. Exactly. It is a national defense thing at this point. Canada's Indigenous peoples must be partners in this endeavor. That's exactly basically what I just said. Give them a cut of this. Make sure they're taken care of. There's billions of dollars. There's enough for everyone. It says all Canadians must prosper as the country becomes more secure and independent. Exactly. Everyone together prosper, but people can't be blocking this stuff anymore. Meanwhile, in Canada, we have more stupid stuff like this. Protesters opposing material mining have taken to the streets at Front and Bay Street outside of Union Station. As a result, the police are redirecting these buses to go around them versus clearing out the radical lunatics. So we get a shot of the lunatics over here. If they want to protest, go to a park. They're affecting major infrastructure. They should be in jail. That's how this country is supposed to operate. These are the same people who don't work. They don't do anything. They want free handouts. They're losers. Go get a job. Go do something with your life instead of protesting in the streets. Canada is a stupid country. It is right now. Why not just move the protesters? Because the police are woke. They have woke directives coming from above. There we have it. Justin Trudeau getting called out by Donald Trump. I mentioned it before. This is only going to get messier before it gets better. Justin Trudeau doesn't seem to want to make a deal, doesn't even want to negotiate with Trump, because if there's a deal made, all these headlines stop and it stops helping the Liberal Party of Canada. The Liberal Party is just using this situation as usual to their advantage. They don't care about Canadians. They never have cared about us. Their actions over the last 9 years have proven that. It's time to get rid of the Liberal Party of Canada.